Hey, folks, welcome to Studio C. It's another edition of Citizen Watch on this beautiful Thursday evening, February 20th, 2014. We have in studio with us the best engineer in AM radio, Steve Colvard, running the control.
Is he here, the best radio engineer? I'm mad at both of you guys, and I'm going to tell the listening viewers in a minute. Go.
And we also have the other voice you hear just now is Robert, the Velvet Sledgehammer Tomasetti. I'm Casey Steed, reporting from an undisclosed location. You know, we always have a little fun there at the studio. It's kind of boring in Studio C sometimes, and
what do you mean
Robert's
boring?
A good sport, and I just want to tell him you're one of my best friends, Robert.
Hey,
so.
I got to tell you what these two knotheads did. We had a show in the past, and if anybody listens, I'm pretty straightforward, and sometimes, and it's true, sometimes when I try to characterize things, I might say something or slip with something that might be misconstrued as insensitive.
Robert's colorful.
So anyway, I go through a show back, and I do this, and yesterday I get this message from Casey that Steve got called into the radio station manager's office because I said something on the air. And so here I am panicking. I'm asking my friends, how do I solve this problem? Steve's still laughing. So I'm up till 1 o'clock in the morning. I got what Damien wants you to do. Damien is the station manager. He wants you to record a PSA, and it's going to run for a week. And I'm going, what? And I'm going, well,
PSA is a public service announcement.
Yeah.
We told Robert he had to record an apology, and he needed to come in early this morning.
So I came in this morning. I was up all night. Casey did a great job because he never let on anything. And the only time I really got to thinking was when Steve was here and we're doing the PSA, and Steve's like asking me stupid questions. It's like, so if you still
want to apologize for this and
you apologize for that.
Did you over the top stuff?
Yeah, it was over the top, and I'm looking at him going, what? Are you nuts? What are you talking about? And then finally I see Steve chuckling, and he goes, you got punked. And it was very good. Usually I do the jokes and I pull the practical jokes, but I got to tell you, this one was awesome.
It was. Robert is a great practical joker. He had a friend that went on vacation that had some chickens, and he went out and bought eggs as if his friend's chicken laid all these eggs while he was gone.
He said, I bought chickens. He buys 4 chicks, right? So he puts them in his yard. They grow. What he wants fresh eggs because he's from a farm in Cincinnati. So I find out that chickens don't lay white eggs. I didn't know that. But regular chickens lay brown eggs. So I go to every store in Atwater and Merced looking for brown eggs. So what I do is I put 4 eggs, because he had 4 chickens. I put them in it. The guy comes back, oh, my God, you'll never believe it, man. My chickens laid eggs. And I'm going, hey.
That's pretty good, too.
And what he didn't know is, wait, and this is how stupid he was. I said, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do with the other part of the dozen? Because you got to buy them in dozens. You can't buy 1 egg at a time. So I had to spend $4 on a dozen eggs. I took 4 out. I had 8 left. I'm telling the guy, I got chickens. I got eggs here. He ain't paying attention.
Well, we had a little radio fun with Robert Tomasetti, the Sledgehammer, and folks, it was priceless. We didn't keep him on the hook too long. It was only about 18 hours.
It was pretty good. But I was up at 1 o'clock this morning
last night going over the script of his apology, and it was all I could do not to bust up laughing.
So yeah, I got pumped.
I think Steve saw him there at the Millennium last night, and it was all he could do to.
Well, good thing I didn't go to Millennium with you, Steve. I might have figured it out.
He actually didn't show last night, but
I was busy writing my apology.
My phone started ringing about 10 p.m. last night, though.
As soon as he was done, man, I was like, let's go to dinner. We got to talk about this. I'm in trouble. And these two are having fun at my expense.
And, maybe if you'd like, Robert, we can play that PSA for the listeners maybe at the end of the show. Just because it was very eloquent. I got to tell you, that was one of the better PSAs we've had here.
Yeah, if we ever do have to give an apology for Citizen Watch, you're our spokesman, Robert.
I'm going to keep that.
So you know what I would like to say to everybody I've ever punked, this was real good. This was a doozy. This was very good. And what was funny is it just was funny.
Well, folks, look, let's get right into the what people really tune in to listen to. I want to just briefly talk about the city council meeting last Tuesday. It wasn't on Monday because of the holiday. They did have the council meeting Tuesday. They have the open discussion session, and Monica Villa always gets up and talks. And let me tell you, the homeless people are upset because they're getting moved around. They're getting enforcement action taken on them. And I just have to say, I think Merced looks the best it's looked in many months. And I again give kudos to Norm Andrade.
Hold on, I got a kudo for you. I forgot. Did you notice on the Merced sign, the E and the R is back?
That's very true. Somebody replaced the ER
yeah,
at the hospital.
Somebody had told me under the tracks, Casey had reported that the E and the R, the brass E and the R, or the copper, whatever it's made out of, was missing, right? And how it looks terrible. Somebody had told me that they made a call to Mr. Bramble, and within 2 days, the E and R was replaced. So, yeah, Mr. Bramble, thank you.
It says Merced instead of MCED. So, the other thing that happened Tuesday night that I just want to let people know is, Merced is a charter city. We are not a general law city. And a few months ago, it was last year, I believe, there was a bill in the Assembly called SB 7. And what this did is the good Democrats up there wanted us to use prevailing wage rates for all of the work that the city of Merced contracts for. And they said if you don't use prevailing wage rates, we're not going to give you state funding. So basically, they passed this SB 7 that now requires cities like Merced,
that's extortion,
charter cities, to use prevailing wage. This costs us more money, folks. And one of the examples I want to use is if folks read in the newspaper about Atwater Elementary School or Atwater High School, they put a new fence around their pool.
Beautiful
fence. It was going to
fence.
cost them $50,000. And they were able to do it with, that was if they had the union prevailing wage boys do it. But they were able to use high school kids, FFA students, the shop teachers got together, procured the material, and they were able to build this fence for $19,000. And this goes to show you the buying power of what you call normal wages or market wages as opposed to prevailing wages. So a $30,000 difference for the same fence. It looks beautiful. It serves the purpose. It gave the kids a skill.
Yeah, a project.
And a project. And so this just goes to show you how our buying power is diminished by the state making us use prevailing wage. Now, what the city has decided to do is join with 10 other charter cities and sue the state against SB 7. So they have to get council approval to spend the money for Greg Diaz, our city attorney, to pursue this legal case. 3 of our council members voted no. And as far as I'm concerned, they're traitors to the city of Merced, to the citizens of Merced. It's a detriment to the citizens to not pursue this in court. And those 3 councilmen are Noah Lohr, Kevin Blake, and Josh Pedroza.
Can I be honest with you, though?
The only reason they went against this is they're towing the party line.
They're towing the union line.
But wait, union line. Wait, let me ask you something, though, Case. Didn't we see this coming, you and I? Excuse me.
Yes, we did.
We saw this coming because when we had them in studio and we asked them about living wage, prevailing wage, and SB 7, they both said we didn't have Noah Lohr on, but what happened was he was in Minnesota raising money. But we did have Kevin Blake and we did have Josh Pedroza on, and they both said, "Hey, I'm for this prevailing wage and I'm for living wage." And we get caught up in this rhetoric of what's the difference between a living wage, an entry level wage, a minimum wage, and a prevailing wage, and it's all over the map. And these guys basically showed their hand when they said, "I'm for SB 7," and now guess what?
And this is going to cost us more money. They're not representing the citizens of Merced that elected them. One of them is the mayor pro tem. And I just find this unconscionable that you're going to charge or cost the taxpayers of Merced more money by forcing us to use these higher wages when we could get the same thing done for almost 3/5 less, as evidenced by the work that went over there at Atwater High School. And, of course, that ties into a whole other thing with bonds that we'll probably get into later. But I just find it unconscionable that we don't have a united front against the state on this SB 7. We are a charter city. We are not a general law city. That gives us sovereignty that other cities don't have. And I think it's wrong that those 3 councilmen voted against expending this money, which was $10,000 for legal fees, where the other cities are contributing like amounts. And we're going to have a united front. But if we don't have a united front, just like we saw in the Walmart, look what happens. And I just don't understand these council members' reasoning, and I would invite them into Citizen Watch.
I got to tell you
why they did this.
Yeah, well, I'm not terribly surprised, and I'll have Josh Pedroso in on this weekend, so I can run that by him. But Robert, you had something.
Their campaign contributions from the Teamsters.
Exactly right. These guys are
these unions, and this is the quid pro quo, folks. You can't toe the party line all the time. You have to represent the citizens, not the political party, not the people that donated to your campaign. You got to be bigger than that, and I'm really disappointed in these individuals.
Robert?
Well, you know what I've always said is if you see, it's like my rhetoric with the school system. Okay, if our school system is broken and you know that, why aren't we looking at what's the better schools, what school system is, and try to mirror that? If I was a city councilman and this came to me and I was confused, and I'm hoping that they're confused and they made a mistake.
Yeah, I hope they're.
Right.
Yes, you're right.
What I think is, you see, I'm using my apologies in my rhetoric here, aren't I, guys? Anyways,
do our first break, Steve.
No,
wait, I'm not done.
We have about 4 minutes.
What I'm trying to say is, if I am one of the councilmen and I'm confused, I would easily pick up the phone and call the 10 other charter cities and say, what's your spin on
Yeah, but
this?
they're not confused. This doesn't surprise me at all, personally.
No, it doesn't, because I heard them say the
right.
rhetoric.
And Mr. Blake and Mr. Pedroso and Mr. Lohr are government employees. They're very union. They're union supporters. They believe in the union system. They believe in the government as a machine to provide incomes for people, and they want to make them good, livable wage incomes. But then what I think you get back to is the philosophical differences between.
Right. True, and I think
we have no problems with union, folks. Let's be clear. I worked for a union electrical firm there in town, Ferrero Electric, for many, many years. I worked in Southern California for union signatory firms. I have no problems with the union. The problem I have with the union is when they say, you play with our bat and ball or you don't play at all. And I think that we should be able to go out and contract with the best available firm, union or open shop, that can provide the services and goods to the citizens of Merced. To say that we can only go with union, only go with prevailing wage, limits us in our buying power. And folks, we don't have money. I hate to tell you, we're running out of money. So we need to make every dollar stretch as far as we can.
Yeah, but I don't think they believe that.
But here's my question.
Fundamentally, they don't believe we're running out of money. Fundamentally, they believe that the state of California actually ran a surplus this year. That's what they're being told.
But what did I tell you? Well, I told the listeners about a month ago that there was a big article in the newspaper that the state of California is going to be sued over this redevelopment issue, and it could put a huge dent in the coffers. And that's my problem with government. There's a little sliver of hope of black. There's a little sliver of hope of black ink, and immediately spend.
I'll tell you, though, that the way they arrive at that black ink is accounting gimmickry, in my opinion. When you're in debt hundreds of billions of dollars, and you can still count well,
they're counting their chickens before they hatch. Like Steve Gomes said on our Tuesday show. What they did is they had $100 million. They expect $100 billion in capital gains. This year it's going to be down $80 billion. What if it's not $80 billion? What if it's $75 billion? $5 billion shortfall is a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to give kudos out to the Atwater Union High School District as far as getting there, thinking outside the box, getting the fence built for, like I say, 3/5 less than what it would have cost had they gone out into the public sector. And this is the kind of thinking we need to use all around the block, not just in the school districts.
That's America personified to me.
Those
Atwater teachers and those.
Yep. Let me ask you guys a question. Okay, how do you get to be a bigger company? You start out as a small company, right? And how is it that you become a small company that survives? You provide products and services that are what? Efficient, easy to use, easy to understand, and you're honest. Now, if you're trying to do that and you go to the city and you say, hi, I would like to bid on this, and the city says, well, sorry, we got to pay Joey over here out of San Francisco prevailing wage. Are you really helping small business?
Again, we're getting back to fundamental differences in philosophies between the two parties.
Well, it's not even party, because they tell you this is not a party line thing. Okay, but
who tells you that?
Well, they tell you that when you vote for supervisor, city council, mayor, it's nonpartisan. But we know it is.
I have some oceanfront property in Arizona for you.
Speak louder than their rhetoric.
No, I'm saying that. I'm trying to educate the listener when they say that it's wrong. And here's the other thing. Merced Chamber of Commerce says shop locally. when you're paying prevailing wage, you are contrary to our slogan, which is shop locally. Locally,
right.
Okay, because what you're doing is you're giving the business to people that are union shops, which is predominantly the Bay Area.
Which are the primary contributors to the Democratic Party,
Exactly.
which are ruling the state, and their philosophy is prevailing right now. And that's just the democratic process. There's more people that voted them in than voted the other philosophy. And that's the reality of the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to take our first break. Case, you want to take us out?
Well, I'd just like to say welcome, back to Citizen Watch, and Robert, thanks for that apology. It was beautiful.
I'm gonna follow up with my attorneys, and please stand by for our next trick.
We'll be right back, folks.
Be the first thing.
I'm kind of afraid to come back now.
Welcome back to the show, folks. It's a beautiful Thursday evening. Take us back, Case.
Hey, welcome back to our second segment here on the February 20th edition. Beautiful Thursday evening and there in Merced, California. Hopefully we're going to get some weather later. I was talking a little bit about we have Steve Colvard, Robert the Velvet Sledgehammer, the apologist in town, and I'm Casey Steed from an undisclosed location. I was talking a little bit about the city council meeting Tuesday night. One thing that happened in the opening session was the Merced Elementary School District got up. District Testa, I believe he's Dr. Testa from what I heard, got up and talked about the bond float that the school district wants to float. They call it a GOB, a general obligation bond, and what they want is gobs of money, folks. They have $300 million in needs, in repairs at the elementary schools, Hoover, Crookshank, I don't know the others, Charles Wright, I think there's a bunch of them. Anyway, they have $300 million in repairs that they need to make. They figure they can bond for $120 million based on the assessed property values, but they're going to only float us a $65 million general obligation bond. Now, what this does is this adds more money to your property taxes. And the problem I have with this, folks, is how much is enough. We just had Proposition 30 that was supposed to be the end-all. We floated bond after bond after bond in this city, and it's never enough money. And look at what we get. I mean, we got a nine-issue letter about El Capitan, and the construction defects out there, again, paid for with prevailing wage, $98 million in the worst school you can build. And what are we going to get for this $65 million? I just question why we need to have our hat in hand all of the time for the poor taxpayers of the city.
And this is in addition to the other bond float from the $115 million for Merced school districts?
That was the Union High School District. This is the elementary schools. Like I say, they all have their hands out. There's never enough money. They're trying to say that over there at Hoover, they're using 50-year-old air conditioning units, blah, blah, blah. The piping is rotted in the ground. They're not going to build any new schools, folks. Don't misunderstand. You're not going to get a new school for $65 million. You're just going to patch up the old ones. And I really question, why is this necessary? What have they been doing with their maintenance money all along? Why is the state putting these burdens on us, the local taxpayer? Because they take more and more money from our city, and less of it comes back the other way.
Yeah, but Case, here, I'm going to go back to this point. We, the people of Merced County or Merced City or wherever the case may be, you have the power to say no. And it's very simple. You get out of bed the day of the election, you go down to your voting booth, you put an X next to no, and cut it off. Just cut this bleeding off.
People don't realize that we floated a bond. The Merced Union High School District floated a bond a few years ago called a CAP bond, a community or a capital improvement project bond. It was for $11 million, okay? These are one of these shady kind of bonds. They're about ready to make them illegal. It was almost like the stated income scam when people were buying homes back in 2005 and 7. It's going to cost us $285 million to pay off this bond, an $11 million bond. That's the kind of interest rates these guys get. That's usury, folks, and it's 49-year payoff. So you're going to see that on your taxes for 49 years. We don't even start paying the principal for 10 years.
Right.
This is just ludicrous.
Enough is enough.
Ludicrous.
Enough is enough. Enough is enough is enough is enough. And this is where I have strong agreement with the Tea Party. There's some things that I just don't, I'm not in concert with them. But the one thing that the Tea Party stands for is taxed enough already. And folks, we are there. Have you seen government pensions? I mean, that's a whole other thing we can talk about. It's ridiculous, people. We've got to cut the taxes. We've got to cut the bond insurances. We've got to make these guys play within the bounds of the money they already have because there's plenty there. There's plenty there.
Is Robert still in studio?
Robert had to take a phone call. I think he called his attorney.
Oh, okay. Scott, well, let's talk about pensions for a minute. You know, we saw in the news about our former sheriff, Sheriff Pazin, and of course he was a regular on the show there on KYOS on the airwaves, and we really do miss him.
And this isn't about Mark. This is about the system that we have allowed to grow and fester in this state of California. Go ahead, Case.
Yeah, we saw that his pension, he's acquired enough time and credits to get $200,000 a year in retirement. And just to give folks an idea of what that is, that's about $100 an hour in normal 2,000-hour work year. That's what he's going to get in retirement. Now, his dad is 87 years old right now. If he lives as long as his dad has lived already, and he's still going strong, and we appreciate John Pazin as a listener, that's going to be $7 million the taxpayers are going to pay out over the course of the next 35 years.
Yeah, and he's just one.
You know what I did?
He's just one of many. He's one of many.
Yeah,
that's
but you know what I did?
Works.
When I read about this in the newspaper, and I'm back, people, I had to step out and take an important phone call. And I guess you're on the Mark Pazin pension, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about how
but see again, I want to
$200,000 a year, and we do not blame Sheriff.
Exactly right.
Yeah, but what
this isn't a Pazin issue per se. This is the system that the taxpayers of California has allowed to grow and fester.
This is what Vince Pirro told me. I was at Arnie's Humidor, and we were talking about this. Arnie's like, "You're not understanding," and Arnie's trying to couch this because his wife is Barbara Levy, and he's very well versed in the retirements and things like that. So my thing is I love Barbara Levy, but I think she's going to get a perk that when she becomes an elected official that I just rail against. And what happens is, like Vince Pirro says, he says, Robert, he goes, look, you're a radio personality. He says, what you're doing is you're taking a situation and you're putting a face to it, because I was just livid when I read that Mark's making 130% of his salary. And I'm like, what the heck? And he's like, Robert, you're just putting a face to it so that you can, you can identify it. And so I was. And I was like, I read this and I say, this is my opinion. This is not Mapleton Communications. This is not Insensitivity Workshop telling me this.
Oh, we just read the disclaimer before the segment started.
Okay. The situation is I think when you read about what Mark Pazin gets, you look at Pat Lunny, and you go, you wonder why at 66, 67 years old, you want to be the sheriff? Because look at the lucrative retirement you are going to step into. Now, he doesn't have the 33 years. He doesn't get the bump. But this is the problem with this pay structure that I don't like. Every elected official gets paid vacation and sick hours. Now, Lisa Presto, Barbara Levy will get it when she, I believe, when she takes office for winning her campaign. Karen Adams, Larry Morse, all of these people will get a big fat check of about 30 days of their pay, which will be equivalent to about $12,000 given to them at Christmas time for nothing. Because it says here, or what I said, when you are an elected official, you don't have vacation and sick hours. Mark Pazin's up here in Sacramento railing for his union. He was part of the union and all that, the sheriff's union. He was the head of the sheriff's union. Now, that is not his job here in Merced County. So when he takes the days to go up to Sacramento, is he taking a vacation day or a sick day? No, he is not.
They don't call in sick. They don't say, hey, I don't feel good today, and call themselves and ask permission.
And you know why?
The government plays by a different set of rules.
Because it says here exactly what I said, that he doesn't have to account for those days. And it said, although Pazin was paid for vacation and sick hours, he's not required to use those days or account for them because the sheriff is an elected position. So every one of our elected officials up there in the Taj Mahal on 2222 M Street, they get vacation days and sick days that they do not have to account for.
Can I make a point here? So you, the listener, you just heard that commentary. Why would you even consider raising taxes again? Why would you even consider a bond float when this is the system that they are playing within?
Right.
It's got to be cut off. This is all predicated. This is all predicated on tax increases and bond floats. As soon as that gravy train is cut off by you, the listener, you, the taxpayer, they're going to have a whole new paradigm to deal with.
Right.
Well,
And the situation, Casey, that I have a problem with is, here's my question to you, and you would probably know this better than anyone else, is who writes these contracts? Okay,
well, who was representing the people of the state of California at that bargaining table?
State of California? No, guys. Merced County has their own private retirement plan.
But I understand.
Yeah, this is something I've railed against for years. When I ran, I talked about it. We need leadership up there at 2222 Payton Place, as I call it. It's not M Street, because what's been going on there is a lot of shenanigans. It's just like the old Payton Place. But this is called pension spiking, folks. You know, I've raised a lot of animals in my life. If you put a cow out in a field of alfalfa, he'll eat until he bloats. You have to have fences. You have to keep the cow out of the field until you want him to eat. And what they do is they take this vacation and this sick time, and they get paid at the end of the year a nice little $10,000, $12,000 check that none of us get, and they just get to spend that. Now, that's one thing. But when you add that check to your wage, and then your pension is based on it, that is just plain wrong. And what we need is leadership up there on the dais at 2222 Payton Place to say, no, we're going to change the rules. We're not going to take this crap. We're not going to take this from the taxpayers because it's wrong. We don't have to call in sick. Hell, they don't even have set hours, folks. Go down there and try to find somebody. You can swing a dead cat and not hit anybody. It's one of these things that's just unconscionable. And now you and I, this is what I call the ghost force of employees. We're going to elect a new sheriff in June or November if it goes to a runoff. And now we have an existing sheriff, a retired sheriff, that's getting $200,000 a year. That takes away from equipment. It takes away from services. This is what we talk about, the pension crisis that is looming in the state of California.
You know what people have said?
Again, but I think we have to uncouple this from Mr. Pazin. This is a systematic failure.
Well,
go on.
Clear. If I was in Mark's situation, I think if any of us were, I'd do the exact same thing. And if anybody says they wouldn't, they're liars. Because they would do it. I would do it.
You're absolutely correct. See, my problem is the Greg Wellmans of the world would put in just enough to qualify for a pension and move on somewhere where, now, let's be honest, if you go from the city of Merced to the city of Atwater to the city of Tracy to the city of Oakdale, it's all the same people. It's called CalPERS. But when you couch and you gerrymander your retirements, this private one and that private one, you start stacking them on top of each other.
I'm going to have to go back to don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay,
right.
And here's my position. Until the game is changed, stop voting any tax increases and stop voting for any bond floats until the game is changed.
You know, you're right, because there was a guy who wrote, and I thought it was the most eloquent letter to the editor I have ever read, and it says, do not vote for tax increase because no matter how much money you give the government, it's infinite. Never enough.
And that's what they count on.
Yes. And, even Steve Gomes was here. Well, if you really had to take how much money that the education system gets, you really couldn't build schools. So that's why what we do is we do bond floats.
That's bullshit.
Merced City.
Excuse me.
Merced. Maybe you need to start. You want me to write your apology now?
Yeah, I know.
It's an emotional thing, though. I mean, you sit back as a citizens of this state, and I don't know if this is the way it is in all the other states because this is where I live, and it's absolutely disgusting to me when they throw this lavish compensation on these people, and the argument is if we didn't do it, we would lose them to the private sector.
I got to
talk about BS.
All right, you want to hear a story? We live in Elmwood Park, Illinois. Okay, if you read the who's who of the mobsters, they live in Elmwood Park. Okay, my father had a home. We just sold it. The family house was worth about $180,000. $180,000. His taxes every year spiked and spiked and spiked and went up and went up and went up. And my dad was paying $10,000 a year for taxes in that town of a house worth $180,000. Now, let me tell you what they did. The reason they raised taxes is they didn't want certain kind of individuals to own homes. Okay, so what did they do? They made the taxes incredibly high so that you couldn't afford them. Okay, now, here was the difference, though. The parks, magnificent. Graffiti, none. Okay, the streets, Awesome. Paved, everything. You're paying for that. Was it given in payroll? Was it given to the schlub that's sitting there running the garbage service? Heck no. Yeah. The guy who ran the city of Elmwood Park, which is a city of 30,000, was making $80,000 a year. Yep. Okay, Jim Brown makes $250,000 or close. Yeah. John Bramble makes how much? Okay.
Go to fixpensions.com. and look at the people in the state of California that are retired on six-figure incomes.
And you know who they are?
It'll make your head spin.
And you know what will make your head spin? What? If you look at the Bay Area, I will guarantee you this, the highest paid people in the Bay Area in terms of government employees, police officers. Yeah. All 10 of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
the heroes of our community. And it used to be folks you didn't used to, to attract people to government work. That's why they had the pension, the defined benefit.
Right.
We have to get away from that. We can't afford it. We can't project out 35 years at $200,000 a year.
It's a mathematical impossibility unless they continue to raise taxes and float bonds.
Yeah, but
That's the only way it can be sustained.
Who's running
you, the listener, the taxpayer, let's cut it off. Let's stop it. We're taxed enough already. We're taxed enough already. Enough is enough.
Here's the thing that I don't have a problem with. You look at Mark Pazin's salary is $163,000. And I'm thinking, you're the sheriff of Merced, and you're making $163,000. Okay.
Where the average medium income is what, 27?
27. But I don't have a problem with him making 163. I don't have a problem with Jim Brown making 163. I don't have a problem with John Bramble making 163. But Jim Brown does make 163. Okay, I think you can add another $100,000 on top of that. Yeah. Okay, but maybe not. But the point is if you take Mark's salary and you say, okay, he's going to get 90% of 163,000. All right, okay, that's about whatever. But then you see the spiking, people, and the spiking pushes him at 130% of his salary.
I get it. Enough is enough.
And then people go,
we got to take our...
Spiking is terrible. I can tell you the city of Merced stopped pension spiking years ago. The county needs to take the lead. They need to suck it up. They need to let them drop. They need to show some leadership and stop this. I don't know how many times they're going to come to us with more fees, reduction of services, reduction of staff. This is disingenuous to the people that are working, to hiring future people. We're not going to be able to hire them.
That's why there's a disconnect, Casey. There's a guy out there going, oh, let me see what you're doing, Mark. You're playing at every fundraiser. You're over here playing whoop-de-doo up in Sacramento.
It's out of control, but who do you blame?
The voters.
Amen. The voters are responsible for the way that California is being run right now. Get off your butts, get yourself to the polls, and no new taxes, no new bond floats. We got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Go.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the third and final segment of this beautiful February 20th edition of Citizen Watch on AM 1480 KYOS, which, again, if you missed this show or any of our other shows, you can go on YouTube and put in KYOS space 1480 AM and listen to all of our wonderful shows, even last Tuesday with Dr. Gomes. If you have a problem sleeping, that'll be a good one to listen to. But anyway, we wanted
Can we just call him Dr. Sominex?
About pensions, and it's one thing when we have a good sheriff like Sheriff Pazin who retires and he gets his pension. That's one thing. We can't blame Sheriff Pazin. We have to blame the system. But we had an incident in the county here recently where we had somebody in revenue and recovery that had a unique payment plan for some of the female payees over
Meet me at the pharmacy.
Tony Thompson. And, the thing they did with Tony, instead of firing him outright, they let him retire.
So guess what?
I have a problem with this, folks. If you're doing your job and you deserve a pension, that's one thing. But if you're out there with sexual bribery and you're holding up the citizens of Merced and the county for sexual favors and dates, I don't think you should be allowed to retire. I think you should be fired.
Yeah, but case, and again, I don't know this to be the case, but my inkling would tell me that
it's cheaper.
The unions have covered that.
Yes,
the unions have made sure that you cannot fire somebody without paying in their pension. I guarantee. I can't guarantee it because I don't know for a fact. But that would be my guess. It'd be illegal to do that.
I'll tell you what they probably did. The union, if he files a grievance, is going to tie this up for a long time. And what does the cities and the counties do and the school districts? When they get somebody who is nice and naughty, they have a tendency to suspend him with pay. And what he'll do is Mr. Thompson will be collecting a paycheck so he could buy his brand new Stacey Adams shoes at Nordstrom's. And if you ever met Tony, I mean, he dressed impeccable. And now when you see what he has done in his personal life and his professional life, you find out, you realize how. Now, let me ask you this. If he would bribe people for sexual favors, maybe they should do an audit on the books of what he has done, because they're doing an audit on his veterans thing. Aren't they, Casey?
No, they cut that off.
He had a little gig
they cut that off.
With the Veterans Administration where he let homeless veterans. He had a couple of houses, one in Fresno, one in Merced.
How much a day?
$55 a day to let him.
$13,000 a month he was making. $13,000 a month on top of his salary with the city. Yeah.
Well, that's why he didn't need to, take money out of the till. He needed something else.
I don't mean to be a jerk, but how do we know he didn't?
Well, that's true, Robert. You're very true. And
okay.
Again, we had a sheriff's Commander Buttrey with the Merced Sheriff's Department just a few months ago, who was caught. He liked
flashing.
He liked checking out the bolt-ons on some of the female officers and got in a little trouble over there. And again, instead of firing him, they let him put in his 20 years. They scraped every bit of vacation time, sick time, leave time, so that he could retire instead of firing him. And that is wrong, folks. That's wrong.
Well, here's my question.
It's the cult of government.
And that's the point. If you were, look, here's the thing, and this kind of happened today with the punk situation. In the private sector, no, and I'm going to be very honest. In the private sector, if there's a sniff of impropriety, the guy's gone. Right. Sniff. Okay, well, you made me look bad. You used the word this instead of that.
Or he's going to affect the bottom line.
Exactly. And what happens is your history. Not in the public sector.
Because there is no bottom line.
Because there is no bottom line and there is no profit margins.
We need more money. We'll float a bond.
Right.
We'll get the taxes.
Here's the thing. You get Mr. Buttrey. Now, here's what the people don't understand. They're like, so what? Figure out Mr. Buttrey at 42 years old or however old he is.
He was 39, Robert.
Okay.
He didn't even have 20 years on.
He didn't. No. And what they did is they played games to get him to the 20-year point. Then they retire him. Okay. Now what's going to happen is as a county, when he turns 59 and a half, 55 or whatever the golden year is, he's going to start collecting a retirement for the rest of his life, something that he should not have qualified for. The same thing with Tony Thompson. You should have been fired and you lost all benefits. Okay. Now you're going to get some vesting. Don't get me wrong. In pensions, you're going to get a vesting, but you're allowed to retire. Okay. Now what happens is you go to the next place and they say, let me see your resume. And it says, can we call your past employer? No. Okay. And what did you do there? I was revenue and reimbursement. Oh, okay. And you retired? Yeah. I just had tired of it. I retired. Okay. They don't even go on his record that he was fired.
Right.
So he shows up somewhere else in front.
We've allowed government to get out of control at every level.
Yes.
And the only way we're going to get
anarchy
is a vote. Now, I don't want to go the anarchy because I'll tell you, I hear some very troubling things from people that that
Beatles revolution.
People that I have respect for, that are level-headed family men.
Yes.
That are starting to venture some possible scenarios that literally make my stomach hurt.
Do you want to know what's weird? We
can do it through the voting process.
Right. I was watching a movie called National Treasure, which is funny, with Nicolas Cage, and he steals the Declaration of Independence. But he reads the Declaration of Independence, and it says that if you are feeling that you're under the laws of tyranny, your job is to change the government.
Right.
And the funny part about it is
then we get into the Second Amendment.
Right.
And what the Second Amendment means. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to restrict the Second Amendment.
Right.
Because an unarmed populace is easier to control.
Well, not only that, but I'm looking at political correctness, which is curtailing the First Amendment. You can't say what you think because I'm offended. Well, I'm sorry, but opinions and criticism are going to be
out of control there too. I agree.
Yeah. Got way out of control to where I got punked for it. I'm just fun. I'm telling you guys,
one
that was the
more thing
best.
on this before we leave. CalPERS, it's just raised their contribution. The state of California is going to have to put in another $1.5 billion a year for a total of $5 billion a year to cover these pension folks, because they're $100 billion in the red.
That's you, the taxpayer.
We won't even talk about the California state teachers retirement system. This is just California public employees' retirement system.
And when you say the state of California,
cities, we're going to have to contribute more money from the city of Merced.
Right.
Again, it gets into this SB 7. What we have is buying power. We have less and less money, folks.
And what's the natural progression? The natural progression is more taxes, more fees,
more bond floats.
They have to find ways to squeeze money out of you. They have to.
You don't want to end up like Robert's dad there in Illinois paying $10,000 on a $180,000 piece of property. Thank God, thank the Lord that we have Proposition 13 in California, that Howard Jarvis had the foresight back in the 70s to act this legislation.
Can you imagine?
We would have $10,000 property bills, folks.
But you know how I defend Prop 13. Everybody wants to complain about the money. You know how I defend Proposition 13? I go to Pebble Beach every Christmas, and I drive or I ride my bike through Pacific Grove. And these are 900-square-foot homes with old people in them. The people have always had a dream home on the coast. And in 1980s, when all of the property values went crazy, these people went into a $200,000 bungalow to is now worth $1 million. Now, if there wasn't Proposition 13, those people would have to lose their homes.
That's right.
And getting back to the Mark Pazin thing, you know what a lot of people say though is,
do we have to call it the Mark Pazin thing? Can we not just call it the abuse of the California retirement system? Because Mark we're hating on the player instead of hating on the game.
Like
the game is fixed. The game is out of whack, and we've got to take control of it.
No, you're absolutely right. But we use a name to put a face to it. And
I don't think you appreciate him being the poster child for.
No, and I don't think he wants everybody knowing that he's knocking down 300,000. No, and I don't think everybody he wants everybody to know.
And it's not about Mark. It's about the system.
It's about the system.
The way, go to fixpensions.com and look at all of the retired people in California living on.
But you know what people, do you know how people justify this when I talk to them? Well, if you figure that out, he's actually losing money by working. So, yeah.
I get back to my initial premises is that public service is just that. It's public service. You don't go into public service to make yourself wealthy. You go in there because you're helping your fellow man. Now, you need to make a livable wage, and you deserve to enjoy your life to a certain extent. But you don't go in to make money. California, the government has become the world's biggest corporation.
Yes,
right,
and
it's all about money. It's running like a corporation. What's in it for me? And the only way this corporation can continue to thrive is if you, the taxpayer, continue to stay home and only vote in blocks of 24%, which are all the people that have vested interests in the outcome of the vote. Because they're probably on the dole somewhere. But here's what I'll tell you: if you're in a group of people that are on the dole, and you have to listen to them talk and support the tax increase or the bond float or whatever, listen to it. Say what you got to say to participate in the conversation. But nobody goes into the voting booth with you. No one knows what you do once you close that curtain behind you. And get in there and do what you think is best.
That's right. Do the right thing.
Amen, brother.
Something you wanted to talk about that happened on the freeway?
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. We talk about public service, all right? And now I'm going to tell you why the world is upside down. I look at things and I scratch my head. One of the things is I love George Carlin. Why in the world do we put Braille, on drive-through ATMs at a bank? If you're driving and you need Braille, you're in trouble. Okay, so, things just don't make sense.
That's political correctness gone awry.
Right. Here is just stupid as stupid gets. I have a friend of mine, his name's Dave Elam. Dave Elam is a great guy. Recently lost his brother, Brian. God bless you, Dave, and your family. But Dave is a handyman. Okay, the guy does odd jobs. So he's on the highway, and he's making that turn as you're coming to V Street, 16th to V Street, and it kind of S's a little bit before you get to the auto center. And out of nowhere, a car careens into the passenger side at 100 miles an hour. What had happened is some guy, stole a vehicle. Highway patrol are chasing him down Highway 99. Dave doesn't see it because he's turning into the bank. And he's making a turn, how it curves. And he doesn't see him on the straightaway. And the guy hits him, pushes Dave into the guardrail. The guy crushes his car, gets out, runs across the highway. What does Highway patrol do? They chase the guy, right? Here's Dave panicking, right? Feels he's got chest pains, might be having a heart attack. Where's Highway patrol? They're chasing the dude with the car. Here's Dave pushed against the guardrail. Nothing, right? No help, no nothing. If it wasn't for, he told me, a nurse helped him. Yeah. He got to the hospital, his health insurance, and he have to pay that bill. Now, the perpetrator, who pays his medical bills? The state of California. Why? Because he's incarcerated. Okay, so here's a guy that got no help from Highway Patrol. You think Highway Patrol would have even stopped and asked, hey, do you need help? We'll be right back. Never came back to help the guy. They were so intent on following this perpetrator. And I called Dave this morning, and he said 3 police officers, and not one of them came to render him assistance, and he was just an innocent bystander, an innocent victim. And this is, and if you call Highway Patrol, I'll bet you'll get, that's the way we were trained to do it. This is what we do.
I hear you, man. I've never felt, I've been alive for 46 years now, and I've never felt that we've been in this kind of dynamic in our country, and in the state specifically. And it's alarming to me.
Well,
and
you know
we've got
what?
to get control of it.
If you read back in the Reagan years and you read back before that, it was this way again. What we need is somebody who
need integrity.
Yes.
We need integrity back in government. It's completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Because it's begat.
It's what's in it for me.
Yeah.
What can I get out of this?
You think it's funny? You should come to the Italo Lodge. They had fundraisers, any fundraiser, but this year was at the Italo.
Yep.
You go and I go to fundraisers and you hear the stuff. What's in it for me? I'll vote for you. I'll vote for him. I'll do this. I'll do that.
And in the meantime, all the little peons just suffer and wilt and struggle.
And you wonder why we only have a 25% turnout, which was a great turnout in the last race. We were only expecting 10. Yeah. So, folks, we do need to get out there and vote, because the 75% of you sitting at home, well, we need you. We need your participation.
Yep. Case, take us home, bud. We're out of time.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for listening to this edition of Citizen Watch on AM 1480 KYOS. There's a million things we wanted to talk about. We'll get to them next week. I encourage everybody to tune in next Tuesday, where we'll have another edition of Citizen Watch with Steve Colvard, the best engineer and co-host in the business, Robert, the Velvet Sledgehammer Tomasetti. We can always have a little fun. Robert, you're my best friend. I want you to know that.
This is Robert Tomasetti, co-host of the popular show. I would like to... Oh, you wanted to hear that?
No,
I have it on record.
We'll try to edit that down where we can air it. But, Robert, what do we say every time we leave?
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Good night, folks.